So it's raining, both literally and figuratively, in good ways and bad. You'll notice I'm finally back in the Chevy. Even when I got it back from the shop, having them put in heater core, rebuilding the whole front end, pitman arm, and all that kind of business, it still needed some work before it was ready to actually go back to work for me. One of the things was I went to air up the tires, and I have one of those really cool tire inflators that has a gauge built into it, and you squeeze the trigger and you let off and it tells you the pressure. And as I was airing up that tire, I noticed, wow, that valve stem's really cracked, and I messed with it. And yeah, it was split all to pieces, and now it won't hold a drop of air. So I ended up in the driving rain breaking down my tire without removing it from the truck, because I don't really have a floor jack. I don't really have jacks, so I don't work on cars, right? When I do, I should be working on them out at the shop, but I'm not. Anyway, I'm in my driveway, I'm in the driving rain, and I managed to break down the tire, and they're reverse rims, and what that means is the relief side of the rim is on the inside instead of on the outside, and that means that when you mount a tire, you turn it upside down. Like if it's on a rim clamp, you turn it upside down and mount it from the back. And that is only important because when you break down a tire to put a valve stem in, the valve stem's even further away. So you really have to crush it down. And I've got kind of big, stiff, heavy tires. You know, they're not 10 plies, they're 6 plies, but they're still, it still takes a lot to crush them down enough to where you can actually get to the valve stem. And anyway, as I aired up, they were all the same age, so they were all dry rotted. So I ended up replacing all of them, and I bought a bead breaker from Harbor Freight, which was not really up to the task. I should have just gone to this tire shop right here and had them do it, but I kind of wanted one of those bead breakers anyway. And next time I need it, first it has to go to the welding shop and be heavily modified. I had to stretch it because the tires on my truck are really wide, and this thing wasn't made for tires anywhere near this wide. There's, you know, maybe some motorcycle tires, maybe some smaller car tires, but not for these. These are over a foot wide, so I had to stretch it. I stretched it about 4 inches to get it in range to be able to break a bead on one of these, and it was still a chore. The foot of the bead breaker doesn't catch the other side of the rim. They're really tall too, so I would have to put various items in there to get the geometry to work right, and I used straps and lubricant and everything else to get them loose. But I finally got them. I replaced all 4 valve stems in my tires myself. I should have taken some pictures of that because it was a feat. But anyway, so the first thing I noticed, that was actually the second thing. The first thing I noticed was that it was low on coolant. And so I stopped and I bought a jug of coolant. I dumped the whole thing in. And the next time I drove it was low on coolant. Now it's been raining this whole time, so I can't see where it's leaking or anything like that. It's just water everywhere. So I called up my cousin, who is the mechanic who did the repair work to my truck, and he's like, I bet it's the water pump. I'm like, yeah, he's probably right. And I go out of town this weekend. I come back, and sure enough, there's a puddle of water right where it would be if the water pump was indeed leaking. And so he seems to have been right, because I put a water pump on, and in the process of that I bought a thermostat, and the thermostat was wrong, and I ended up breaking my thermostat housing, which that falls on me mostly, almost completely, and went back and said, hey man, this thermostat doesn't fit. And it was somebody I know, and so I gave him a little bit of a hard time, but not too bad, because I mean I worked that job before. I know what it's like. Anyway, so I got him to look up thermostat housing. They sell thermostat housing with the thermostat built into it, and that's what I needed. And they didn't have one. I had to go across town to get one, and they said they didn't have one, but after some more rooting around, I finally figured out, yep, they did. They just needed to know which one to look for. I think I might be better at their job than they are at times. Anyway, so got that sucker together, hooked up the trailer, trailer brakes lock up. So, a little bit of backstory, I upgraded the brake controller on Whitey one day, and it really worked nicely. So I replaced it. I initially was going to take that one and put it in this truck, you know, the old one from Whitey, which, had I done that, it might still actually be working. But I liked it so much, I thought I'll put the exact same one in my Chevy. So I did. Well, the one in Whitey went out last summer, and it was doing the same thing. It would lock up the brakes. You could not turn it down. It wouldn't respond to the turn it down button. It's just broke. So I replaced it this summer, and now this one was doing the exact same thing. So I replaced it. So lots of new stuff on here. Yesterday, part of the time while I was driving, it was hot enough that I wanted to run the air conditioner. Well, now the air conditioner isn't working. So it's never ending. Like I said, it's raining. Not going to get me down, though. And by the way, I'm doing tile, which is indoors, except that my saw is outdoors, and it's downstairs, and it's across the driveway, kind of in the mud. So I laid down some pieces of concrete board so I wouldn't have to stand in the mud while I was using my saw and track that into the guy's house. But yeah, I've been soaked a lot lately. Good things from this weekend. It was Christine, a youth rally down in Russellville, Arkansas, and I got to have lunch with my son's girlfriend's family, which was pretty great. Good people. I'd met the stepdad, you know, throughout the years, you know, a few times, and I like him a lot, and he's an amazing singer, and he looks to me like an awfully good dad too. But anyway, moving on. I brought my camper down there, which was a lot of work because, like I said, it was stuck in the mud and all that business. And even when I went to drop it off, knowing that my side yard needed some gravel, I went out to the shop and dropped it off. But before I even got it dropped off and turned it around, I walked out in the field. I'm like, yeah, this feels pretty solid. It's got good drainage. I got stuck out there again. So I was so fortunate to have my uncle just pull up in his four-wheel drive Chevy and pull me back onto the concrete. So life was good. But it looked like it could get cold, so I went ahead and re-winterized it, which I have to have done that in record time. Now, I never de-winterized the water heater. I never put the plug back in the water heater and turned the little valve, so there was never water in the water heater. So that saves me some time. But nonetheless, it was still a very fast winterization. Not 100% sure that it's going to freeze again, but there's always a chance that it could, and, you know, why risk it? Anyway, I was late to a thing, and so I didn't even end up picking up the dump trailer so that I could go get gravel. Not that I would have had time to pick up the gravel anyway. I would have loved to, but I didn't. Let's see, where are we at? So anyway, back to work, back in the Chevy. It's not as good at pulling the trailer, and I kind of wish I had Whitey again, provided I'm not going somewhere muddy. But the whole swapping of toolboxes back and forth and taking the fifth wheel hitch in and out and all that stuff, it's kind of a drag. But honestly, as long as I'm bringing the trailer, I don't really need the black toolbox. I could easily do without it. Now, I haven't completely moved out of it. There's still some items in there that I would miss if I didn't have it on occasion, but nothing major. And it wouldn't take me very long to move the rest of those things in there. However, the job trailer isn't completely finished, but I'm using it. Most of the cabinets and cabinet doors, I list those separate. I guess I don't have to. Most of the cabinets are built but not painted. The countertop is built, but I have not laminated, and it's too bad. I gotta work, and it is, even in a state of not yet completion, it is still so great to have. So, for instance, now I'm doing tile work, which I didn't have to pick up the tile, but I did have to pick up underlayment and some various items that I could have picked up in my truck. That wouldn't have been too inconvenient. But in the meantime, there was also a repair that needed to be made to the subfloor. So when they initially installed the flange for the toilet, they of course made the hole in the wrong place and didn't do anything about it. And so there was an extra hole that I had to rectify. And having all of my, or at least enough of my carpentry tools on board, and by the way, a piece of 3/4 inch subflooring and screws and all those types of things on board was a huge blessing. So that was fantastic. Now, the advantage of having it just for the tile work is, A, I don't leave a mess. I don't leave a mess on the job, and I love not having a mess on the job. That makes me feel so much more professional. But it's been raining pretty much the whole time. Well, there are things that you can't just get wet, and in particular, the thin set. Okay, so that's the mortar that I'm attaching the tile to the floor with, and it. I set down some scraps on the driveway because I'm backed into the driveway, and I take the bag out of the trailer, pour a little in the bucket, and then immediately put it back in the trailer so it doesn't get wet in the rain. Otherwise, my bags would get ruined. My thin set would get all lumpy and you'd never be able to whip it up. Anyway, the bag would get wet. The bag's paper, it would be trashed, all that kind of stuff. I just keep coming up with other reasons why having this job site trailer on site is awesome. I forgot my lunch. I left my lunch at home. I made a lunch. I got up real early this morning. I made a lunch and it did not make it to the truck. So it's possible that my dogs will eat it. It was a great looking ham sandwich. Oh, that is disappointing. Also, I think I left my dogs outside. Yeah, I definitely left my dogs outside. It's been a hectic morning. I'm going to have to go back to the house. Yeah, so I may drop off my trailer, run back to the house and take care of a couple things, and then come back to work. Well, what a day this has already turned into. That's all right. I don't have a ton of tile to lay today, but, I wanted to have... And I can't believe I left my dogs outside. Well, I kind of can. I went back in and picked up my Easy Up because of the rain, and as an effect, I left my dogs outside. So that sucks. All right. I'm not going to focus on that right now. So having done the same line of work for a long time, eventually even I am getting pretty good at it. The layout that the customer wants is, to me, a little unusual. I don't have the heart to tell him that I don't like it, because I kind of already told him something to that effect before. And I did the estimate based off of another layout, off of a pinwheel. And he gave me the go-ahead and all that business. And then when I got there, none of the tiles were shaped right to go in a pinwheel. There was mosaics like you would use on a backsplash, and 12 by 24 tiles, which are, you know, the rectangles didn't work for a pinwheel. You could make a really weird looking pinwheel maybe. Anyway, so you know, I had to contact him during the day, and that wasn't that big of a deal. I'm also behind on getting back to someone who messaged me Monday, which Monday was incredibly hectic. And I'm eager to get over this hump of hecticnicity. New word. But it feels like you never really do. I think I'll send a message. So I'm obviously still dwelling on the dog situation. All right. I'm pulling up to the job now. I'll get through this day just like every other day. We have days like this, don't we? And it's okay, because God is good.